Hello, my name is Stuart. I am a science teacher, currently stuck indoors with all the symptoms of corona for the last week. Unfortunately, not been able to be tested. Kind of waiting for the antibody test to come out so I can test whether we had it or not. But has resulted in me being stuck indoors for quite a while. So obviously, due to boredom or due to, I don't know, whatever, I've come up with some ideas or some thoughts just based on current things that are going on in the world. And obviously, everyone's kind of panicking and worried about stuff. So I just wanted to share some thoughts with you. Take it or leave it. It could just be a load of rubbish, but I do like a good conspiracy theory as much as the others. So this could make a good film, if nothing else. So first thing I want to sort of share with you is this. I'll just move my screen over a little bit. Obviously, as a science teacher, I share with the kids quite often the idea of fossil fuels and the fact that fossil fuels are used to generate electricity. We burn that fuel and we rely on that fuel for the global electricity we need and we require for our modern society that we have. The amount of devices we've got in every household and the amount of appliances we need to use, even our cars now will all run on electricity. And majority of that basically coming from burning coal, gas and oil in our power stations to generate it. Now obviously you're probably aware that there are renewable sources, so there are things like wind power, solar power, things like that. But we do know that those at the moment alone won't be able to sustain the lifestyle that we lead right now and the amount of electricity that we actually require. So we do rely heavily still on oil and gas in particular and coal. So just to basically highlight the first little point, call it Exhibit A if you want. Known oil deposits could run out in just over 53 years. Gas, approximately 52 years left, and coal, we're saying is probably going to be gone in 150 years. So this presents quite a big dilemma really for countries, for companies that are heavily invested in coal, oil and gas, that in just over 50 years they may not exist anymore. The reason for that is that the global consumption of fossil fuels, as you can see from this image, has increased. So that's 1950, we're at 2017 here. Obviously 2020 would be even higher, even further. So obviously the use of these resources has dramatically increased and is increasing still with the growing population. So we're now at 7 billion. A couple of years ago we were at 6 billion. So global population has increased. Like older people are living longer due to our great medical benefits, healthcare, etc. And more people being born at the other end. So again, this presents a bit of a dilemma for any company that is linked to coal, oil and gas. So here's my hypothesis, if I want to put it that way, is there is a possibility that there could be companies that could be behind a global epidemic such as the coronavirus. So let me give you my one thought, and then you can take it or leave it and do what you want. So some of you may have heard of the Rockefeller Foundation. So the Rockefeller Foundation, if I go to the top, is basically a group of philanthropists, so people that are rich, got companies that basically decide that they're going to put their money together to help with technology development, to help with health development across the world, to try and make, their premise is to try and make the world a better place through, using their money for the right reasons. So it was started by John D. Rockefeller, who is the foundation is basically the owner, or the family were the establishers of Standard Oil, an oil company. Their end of year, so that's 2016 end of year, so a few years out of date, 4.1 billion. So, but this is the most up to date in terms of what they've been making, and obviously what they've been giving out. So 173 million they've been giving out. It's a disproportionate, isn't it, really, making that much and only giving out that much, but still. So just a few things I'm just going to pull up about this foundation that kind of apply to what's going on right now. So some of the things that they've actually got involved in across the years. So in 1913, the foundation set up the International Health Commission and launched this international public health initiative to try and work against various diseases. So working in various diseases in 52 countries on 6 continents and 29 islands, bringing international recognition of the need for public health and environmental sanitation. Their research was looking at things like hookworm, malaria, yellow fever, etc., and provided basic techniques to control those diseases. So carrying on, in 1914 they set up the China Medical Board and established the first public health university in China, which is the Peking Union Medical College. So yeah, it's just a few little things about this foundation. This one is quite an interesting bit of information about it, and you can read it yourself. I know this is only Wikipedia, so do all your research you want around it and maybe research into it a bit further. But this is just obviously the sort of basics of things that I found. That the Rockefeller Foundation actually funded the Nazi racial studies, even after it was clear that this research was being used to rationalise the demonising of Jews and other groups. So if you look into it a bit further, basically they're supporting the idea of this like Aryan race, and eugenics, looking at obviously a race of people with a certain genome. Some of the things, obviously, programs and scale and scope they've been involved in: medical, health and population sciences, agriculture and natural sciences, art and humanities, social sciences, and international relations. So do your own research on the company. Please do look at it yourself. I'm only just doing a quick overview here. One of the interesting things there that they help the World Bank and some of the notable programs. So this is one of the things that really sort of like came to my thought process the other day. There was a guy on the Panorama program that was put out about Corona last couple of days, and he was the main guy talking about the vaccine, etc. He's from the UK, and he was from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. One of the foundation's notable achievements, helping establish this building. So quite an interesting one, that one. So obviously, it is a foundation that have got a global reach. There are links with this foundation with Bill and Melinda Gates, and obviously that brings in the technology side of things. So when I'm talking about oil and gas running out, these guys have quite a high investment in that area, but also with the Bill and Melinda Gates side of it, they also have a high investment from a technology point of view. And obviously, if we can't power those devices because coal, oil and gas run out, then obviously it affects the technology side of things too. One of the other quite interesting things along that line of coal, oil and gas, and obviously, the idea that this could be that these companies are behind this, is this idea of Russia. Now, Russia have been a bit quiet in terms of what they're putting out there in terms of coronavirus. But we all know that Russia have quite a large investment in oil and gas in the world. And obviously the second highest income for a company, a revenue of 12 months, this is Lukoil, which is obviously a Russian multinational energy corporation, second highest in the world. Obviously the top one is here we go, Philips, obviously linked to the US. So just to point out that obviously, Russia, again, a developed country, like all the other countries that are suffering with this, majority of them are developed countries. And so Russia are saying that basically so far they've got just over 1,000 cases, but only 4 deaths. just makes an interesting concept, really. So the Rockefeller Foundation basically have buildings right across the world. One of their main headquarters is in Bellagio in Italy. So this is Fondazione, I don't know if they pronounced that correctly, the Rockefeller Foundation building in Bellagio in Italy. So I'll just zoom out so I can show you exactly where that is. In Italy, there we go. So that's where that building is, and that's the main headquarters, has been the main headquarters for the Rockefeller Foundation for many, many years. The outbreak in Italy, they told us, started with a couple of Chinese tourists that were basically tested positive for it in Rome. So that's all the way down there. But then they said that they didn't think it was them that actually started the outbreak, and actually they said that it had already been spreading in northern Italy already. So if we have a look at northern Italy, this is where basically where the biggest sort of area of the outbreak was. So you can see obviously where this outbreak is greatest and where the virus is spreading most in Italy, where it started from. And then we can have a look back at this Rockefeller building, right smack bang in the middle of that area. So interesting, that one, isn't it? So I want to look into this company a little bit more, and I found this article that they published in 2010. It's called Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. So it was published in May 2010. And it basically goes through 4 scenarios that the world could possibly face and how philanthropists will need to respond to that. So it talks about the idea of 4 different fictional scenarios, basically, that they've come up with. They got together and they thought, this is what could happen in the world. So you've got these 4 here. So you've got Lockstep, Clever Together, Hack Attack, and Smart Scramble. Just going to show you the Lockstep one, which is the first one they talk about. So this is Lockstep, saying that basically the world would be become tighter top-down government control. So more authoritarian leadership from the governments across the world, which basically they're saying would limit innovation and would cause citizen pushback where people would rebel against the governments. So in this, they sort of talk about a pandemic. They talk about similar to the bird flu H1N1 that came out in 2012. 2009. They say that this virus would basically kill 20% of the global population, killing 8 million in just 7 months. A couple of things I just want to point out from this. So one of the things they say is that the United States in this scenario would strongly discourage citizens from flying. Interesting, because that's exactly what the US did straight away. And also that leniency on that didn't actually do anything positive. It accelerated the spread of the virus, which it has, and not just within the US but across its borders. And obviously we know Mexico is struggling too. However, this next bit's quite interesting. However, a few countries did fare better, China in particular. The Chinese government's quick imposition and enforcement of mandatory quarantine, exactly what they did, for all citizens, as well as its instant near hermetic sealing off of the borders, exactly what it did, saved millions of lives, stopped the spread of the virus far earlier than in other countries, enabling a swifter post-pandemic recovery, and that is exactly what has happened. So just going to finish off with a couple of things just to finish off so you can start thinking about this yourself and maybe do your own research. The links between Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, Rockefeller and the governments has been really well researched. The idea that these billionaire philanthropists are basically able to be in the pockets of the political elite. Where's the most deaths? Most are in developed countries where we use most fossil fuels. So countries that actually need to use fossil fuels are the ones that are being affected most. Why is that the case? Not Africa and South America and places like that. Why are they not dying from the virus? And the last thing I want to show you is this one, and please look into this yourself. Something that might happen after this. A way of paying for things across the world. So the rise of the microchipping. Are we ready to technology to get under the skin? So in the US in 2017, some businesses decided to do this and use these chips under the skin. Sweden already used them as a way of paying for things across the world. So I hope that's given you something to think about. Take care.